Imagine you're invited into a room where a high-stakes game is already underway. The players sit around a polished mahogany table, their hands resting on towers of gold chips. But as you approach, you realize something is wrong. Terribly wrong. The chair with your name on it is bolted to the floor. Your hands are tied behind your back. And the rule book on the table? Your pages are missing. When you ask why, the other players smile politely, as if you're asking a question with an obvious answer. You weren't meant to win. You weren't even meant to play. But the most chilling part? This isn't a metaphor. This is an exaggeration. This is the blueprint of a system so elegant, so polished, so profitable, that its gears are still turning beneath the floorboards of America today. And the secret, the part they never teach, is this: black pain was a side effect. It was the business model. Before you ever rolled your first dice, the game was set, not tilted, not unfair, designed. But instead of using Monopoly analogy, let's peel back the board completely. Because this game didn't use dice or cards. It used bodies. Millions of them. Picture America in its earliest form. Not a nation, but a startup. Struggling, underfunded, desperate for a product that could compete with the global powers of the time. And then they found it. Not cotton, not tobacco, not sugar. People. Enslaved Africans became the largest single financial asset in the entire U.S. economy. Let that sit for a moment. Not land, not banks, not factories. People. By 1860, the monetary value of enslaved black people exceeded the value of all railroads, all factories, all banks, all industrial output combined. America's first big business wasn't democracy. It was human suffering. And here's the part the textbooks don't tell you. The system didn't just use black pain. It depended on it. Pain was profitable. Misery was monetized. And the machine that churned wealth out of black bodies was so effective that even after slavery ended, the system refused to shut down. It simply evolved. After the Civil War, there was a window, a brief one, where the machine hiccuped. For just a moment, it looked like possibility. Hope, a rewrite of the rule book. Families walked off plantations and into the sun with nothing but their names and a dangerous new concept: freedom. But the architects of the machine saw something terrifying. For the first time, black people were moving through America with autonomy, skills, generational potential, the ability to compete economically. That wasn't acceptable. So the machine updated itself. You know the phrase, 40 acres and a mule. But what you may not know is this: if that promise had been kept, the economic landscape of America today would be unrecognizable. Black land ownership would have rewritten the country's wealth map. Instead, Andrew Johnson, the president who replaced Lincoln, did something almost no one today discusses. He returned all the land to the very Confederates who had waged war against the United States. And he forced black families off the land they had begun to cultivate and rebuild. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a power move. Because land wasn't just soil. Land was wealth, stability, credit, generational roots, independence. Black independence threatened the machine. So it was crushed. In 1865, black Americans put their hopes and their savings into the Freedmen's Savings Bank. It was supposed to be a fortress, a vault, a symbol that for the first time ever, black prosperity had a safe place to grow. Instead, it became a slaughterhouse of dreams. The bank was run by white managers who gambled away deposits on risky investments that benefited wealthy investors. When it collapsed, over $3 million in black deposits vanished, equivalent to tens of millions today. Generational wealth that could have seeded businesses, homes, schools, legacies, gone. Wiped, erased. The machine feeds best on hope. The system had learned something important. You don't control people with chains. You control them with conditions. And so came the next version of the machine. It looked like opportunity. It was a trap. Black families leased land, bought supplies on credit, and worked endless rows of cotton or tobacco, only to discover at year's end that they owed more debt than they started with. How do you stay free when you're permanently in the red? You don't. which was the point. Here's something rarely taught. After slavery, Southern states passed black codes that criminalized normal life, unemployment, loitering, walking without proof of employment. If you broke a code, you were arrested, and if you were arrested, you were leased to plantations, coal mines, and factories. This system was called convict leasing. It was more brutal than slavery, and more profitable. Some of the biggest companies in America today made fortunes using leased black prisoners as disposable labor. Pain remained profitable. Death became cheaper. By the 1930s, the machine reached its final, refined form. No more whips, no more chains. Now it used laws, maps, mortgage formulas, school districts, highways, city planning, banking models, federal programs. It was slavery disguised as bureaucracy. Government economists created color-coded maps of every major American city. Green equals best. Blue equals good. Yellow equals declining. Red equals hazardous. But the definitions hid a sinister truth. Hazardous meant black. If even one black family lived on your block, the entire neighborhood was colored red. Banks then refused loans to anyone in red zones. This wasn't racism. It was policy, federal, legal, systematic. And the effect? Generations of black families were shut out of the single biggest wealth-building engine in America, homeownership. Meanwhile, the government itself subsidized all white suburbs. White wealth skyrocketed. Black wealth flatlined. The deeper you dig, the clearer the pattern becomes. Every time black America gained ground, a new gear clicked into place. A new upgrade, a new formula, a new loophole, a new reason why the dream had to be delayed. Again, from New Deal exclusions to the GI Bill loopholes, to discriminatory banking, to school funding tied to property taxes, to mass incarceration, to predatory loans in the 2000s, the machine perfected itself. It didn't just preserve inequality. It manufactured it. It refined it. It profited from it. The machine wasn't built to last forever. It was built to remain invisible. Because if you don't see the blueprint, if you don't see the gears turning, if you don't see the structure, you start to blame the players instead of the game. That's the final trick. The masterpiece illusion. Make the players forget that the table was tilted. Make them believe that the pain was random. Make them believe that poverty is a personal failure rather than a historical outcome. But once you see the machine, you can never unsee it. Today, the gears are digital. They don't need red lines on a map. They have algorithms. They don't need Jim Crow laws. They have data models. They don't need poll taxes. They have voter ID purges and district lines. And they don't need chains. Debt works better. Pain is still profitable. Just ask payday lenders, private prisons, health insurance giants, subprime mortgage brokers, bail bond companies, for-profit colleges, data brokers, insurance adjusters, tech companies that score your risk profile. The faces change, the tools change, but the output is the same. Black pain, white profit. You've now seen the gears. You've touched the blueprint. You've stepped behind the curtain. And now the big question. What happens when millions of people learn how the machine works? Machines can run forever, but not if the fuel runs out, not if the rules are rewritten, not if the players flip the table, not if the truth spreads faster than the lie. You are part of that shift. This story is part of that shift. But there's one piece missing, a secret buried so deep, so dangerous, that entire agencies spent decades hiding it. And that brings us to, in the late 1960s, a classified federal program, one so controversial was sealed for over 40 years, mapped out which black neighborhoods were marked for removal, containment, or restructuring. It was never supposed to be discovered, never supposed to be declassified, never supposed to reach you. But the files leaked, not all of them, just enough to expose a truth so explosive. It will change everything you think you know about how the system works today. The files weren't supposed to survive. Not the maps, not the memos, not the signatures. But history has cracks, and sometimes truth leaks through them. When the first documents surfaced, They didn't look dangerous. Just old paper, yellowed edges, faded ink. Then researchers realized what they were looking at. A blueprint, not just for neighborhoods, not just for policing, but for the entire modern structure of inequality. This was the operating manual of the machine. Inside the declassified pages was a title that sounded harmless. Urban Area Policy Review, 1968 to 1971. But under the surface was a coded system with 3 chilling classifications. R zone, remove C zone, contain R2 zone, restructure. Each label determined the fate of black neighborhoods across the country. R zone meant demolition, highways to the heart of thriving districts, industrial zones built where families live, entire communities wiped off maps. C zone meant surveillance, heavy policing, zoning restrictions, strategic underfunding. R2 zone meant economic pressure, banks pulling out, property taxes raised, landlords encouraged to sell, schools starved until families were forced to leave. This wasn't random. It wasn't isolated. It wasn't accidental. It was coordinated. Then came the page that made researchers stop breathing for a moment. A list, city after city, block after block, coordinates, census tracts, black neighborhoods marked for management. And beside every marked location, a single column titled, Projected Profit Potential. Black displacement wasn't a byproduct. It was a revenue stream. The hidden partners. The files revealed something else. This wasn't just a government operation. Private companies were involved. Real estate corporations, insurance giants, construction firms, banking associations, even universities providing risk analysis. They met behind closed doors, exchanging maps like stock portfolios. Every demolished neighborhood was an investment. Every displaced family was a calculated cost. And the profit? Staggering. Billions in land grabs. Billions in redevelopment contracts. Billions in tax incentives. Black pain had become a commodity. Again, but buried deep in the final box of documents was something the architects didn't expect to survive. A rebuttal. Handwritten notes. Draft speeches. Organizing plans. A network of black lawyers, teachers, journalists, and church leaders had discovered pieces of the operation while it was happening. They met secretly. They collected testimonies. They tracked demolition patterns. One line repeated across their notes. We will not let them erase us on paper or in person. Their work didn't stop the machine, but it slowed it, interrupted it, preserved evidence that was never meant to be found. They knew they were writing for the future, for someone who would discover the truth when America was finally ready to hear it. Someone like you. The last page of the declassified file contains a sentence that was heavily redacted for decades. Only recently was it fully revealed. Long-term national stability requires limiting the economic ascent of concentrated black communities. There it is, the quiet part, written loud, hidden by design, not because it was false, but because it was true. The machine was never unstoppable. It was protected by silence, but silence is breaking. Every time you learn the history, they erase a gear jams. Every time you share the truth, a circuit shorts. Every time you question the narrative, the machine loses a little more power. This isn't just history. This is a torch, passed from those who documented the first blueprints to those living through the modern versions to you. Now you know the secret. The machine profits from pain, but it collapses under clarity. And the moment you understand the blueprint, you become impossible to control. This is the final part, but it is not the end. It is the handoff. What you do next decides what the next chapter of this country looks like. Now that you've seen the hidden files and the blueprint they never wanted you to find, imagine what else is out there. Which secret system should we expose next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. I read every single one. If this story opened your eyes, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dive exposés. And share this video so others can see the truth too. Thank you for watching. Your curiosity is the first step to breaking the system. Let's keep uncovering the secrets, together,